Deadly Digest, a show about psychos, sadists, and serial killers. I'm C.F. Roberts, a writer, artist, videographer, and I'm going to turn you over to my co-host.
Hi, I'm your co-host Delaney Bartlett. I'm a true crime and horror writer. And today we're talking about the Phantom Killer of Texarkana. And if you want to learn more, go back to parts 1 and 2 where we go into more details about the crimes and the investigation. But now we're with our friends of the show and friends of myself, Amy Cotham and her brother Chris Cotham, who grew up in Texarkana. We're going to talk a little bit about the legacy of the Phantom Killer. So you guys both grew up in Texarkana. So do you think these killings had any kind of long-term effect on the town?
No, definitely. It's local folklore. People who are alive then just love to tell their kids and grandkids about what life was like then. And during that hysteria, they made a couple of movies about it.
Which we will talk about.
And if you live there at all, you know of something about it.
We grew up hearing the stories, and then there was a resurgence and interest in them when they made the films. It was definitely a cautionary tale growing up that we were told about not being alone in the woods, not to go parking.
No parking.
No parking. And so, which not just like, that means like going out to the woods with your sweetheart parking.
Right.
So, yeah, we definitely grew up hearing about it in lots of different ways.
Right. And so probably the biggest part of what most people would remember about this is the movies. And Chuck, do you want to talk a little bit about the movies?
Yeah, well, first of all, I guess there was the 1976 film, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which was written by Earl E. Smith and directed by Arkansas native Charles B. Pierce, who was kind of famous for the Boggy Creek, the Boggy Creek movies. If anyone saw those kind of Bigfoot movies with lots of reenactments done by non-actors. For The Town That Dreaded Sundown, he had something more, he had a bigger kind of a setup as far as budget goes and whatnot. And he actually had some actual, for real actors in it, Ben Johnson and Andrew Prine, who were kind of stalwart character actors at the time. And Dawn Wells, who was Mary Ann from Gilligan's Island. And, well, let's watch a clip from the trailer.
World War II had just ended. In Texarkana, Arkansas, boys had come home to their families. Husbands reunited with their wives. It was a happy, peaceful time. Until the Phantom Killer struck. For 4 months, he held an entire city in the icy grip of terror.
It was filmed mostly in Texarkana, but also in Shreveport and Scott Garland City, Arkansas. During the filming, they cast several Texarkanians as extras. Amy or Chris, I'm sure you've known people or heard stories of people who were in it or involved in it.
Yeah, my friend John's dad apparently played like a box boy or something like that who walks across the street in it. But you'd meet people who said, "Oh yeah, I was in that movie," just as an extra in a restaurant scene or things like that.
Right.
So people were quite proud of that.
Yeah, they were very excited. It's sort of a point of pride for the town that they filmed these movies there, even though the actual murders were very tragic and violent. I think that for the town it grew an odd, like you said, point of pride, a very morbid point of pride.
It's an interesting thing to be known for. Well, the movie itself, like, it's been called a slasher flick, but when I watched it, I was really surprised that most of the violence was off camera. And so I wouldn't really say it's necessarily a slasher flick.
Nah, it kind of harkens back. And if you look at Pierce, a lot of his stuff is kind of more family oriented. But
That's an interesting way to put it.
yeah,
I always
well,
wondered if it was just cheaper.
Yeah, cheaper.
to have the violence happen off screen,
That had a lot to
or
do
if that
with
was his personal style. Yeah. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. So
Yeah.
a family film, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call that a family film, but most of the other stuff kind of gears more toward light PG. Yeah, just, I don't know, the phrase tonal whiplash comes to mind.
Yeah.
Just where I think some of the reenactment type stuff where the one thing it succeeds at is giving you kind of a scary hooded killer.
Mhm.
But then it has these hokey comedy bits with Pierce actually playing this kind of goofy deputy, and
Yeah.
it's like for the comic relief, and it's like, okay, that sort of undercuts the gravity of the story here, you know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those movies were made to be watched at drive-ins, which we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
And it was trying to hold people's attention when they're basically sitting there in their cars, maybe talking to people in the cars or the next car over. And you'd have these things that maybe don't make for like a consistent movie, but at least keep things interesting for every 5 minutes so your attention
Right.
doesn't drift.
I kind of chalked it up to the time period because it was like kind of around that time in like the mid to late 70s. There was definitely this sort of cops as buffoons theme. There were a lot of movies about like truckers and just, you know, there was like the Dukes of
Smokey and the
Hazzards and
Also, Texarkana connection,
Exactly.
Smokey and the Bandit.
oh my god.
So, they're hauling beer to Texarkana.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was actually better than what I expected. I mean, I hear people call it a B movie, and
Mhm.
I mean, as far as budget wise, probably. But I felt like the acting was really good, so I would call it a B plus movie.
I love that. We'll take it.
But yeah, that was like you said, wildly uneven. There were like, there's one scene where at the very beginning, the officer is rushing to the scene of the crime, and when he's in his car, it's raining really hard. But then when they would have shots outside the car, it wasn't raining. And if it was just once, you could say, oh, well, maybe it stopped raining. But it would literally be back and forth. It was raining, not raining, raining, not raining. It was so crazy.
There are a lot of continuity issues. Of course, through the years, I'll talk about it with friends, and a lot of people like look it up now that you can find things online and want to watch it, and they always point out, this movie's terrible, and it's good in its own way. I think I just don't prepare them right for it being a B movie, but yeah, continuity issues.
Yeah.
You can visibly see cameramen at certain points.
And the entire camera rig.
Yeah, all of it, so there
The
were some
entire-
production issues, but it's still, it's worth watching.
And
Yeah.
it did play pretty fast, loose, and fast, too.
It did,
He-
it did.
He did not wear a pillowcase on his head, as far as we know, but that is part of the movie. I noticed they borrowed that for one of the Friday the 13th movies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And the trombone scene, too.
Very,
And that was one of those things that, because the movie was maybe more famous than the murders were, that the movie kind of got believed and conflated to be the real thing when it wasn't. Because there's a scene where it's a very infamous scene where he's stabbing the girl while he's playing the trombone. And that never happened.
I don't think I ever realized that that wasn't even true. I always knew that she was an instrumentalist that was leaving a concert and had her instrument with her, and it does seem a little far-fetched in retrospect, but that's one of those things too, growing up, and you sort of confuse all the embellishments that you've heard of stories and then the films. It wasn't true.
Just Hollywood.
Right.
Mhm.
And then that legend that supposedly they play it every year at Halloween, and you were saying you never remember
Certainly
that.
growing up, like 70s, 80s, 90s, we never,
No.
I don't think they played it. We probably would have gone, and I had never heard of that. But you said that they did try to bring it back and start playing it.
Yes, at least when I was there in late 2008, 2009, staying there for a while, they were showing it at Spring Lake Park, which is the site of one of the murders, and of course it's now a public park. And it was kind of like a nighttime thing to do on Halloween, I guess. It's like a family event. I don't know how family oriented it is.
It's a strange town.
Yeah, but it's just that big of a point of pride.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think they showed it a lot when I was real young, because I was very young when the movie first came out, and I think that's another reason why everybody would talk about it when I was little. But they didn't really do a lot of revivals, because before you had these megaplexes, they wouldn't show stuff like the local one-screen theater. You know, it'd be Star Wars for the 9th week or something.
Right, and that was in the days before VCRs and stuff, so you either saw it in the theater
Or you
or
missed it.
you missed it,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
Hopefully they would show a chopped up version on the late night, television movie
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
The local library wasn't gonna have like a daytime family screening of that.
Did you see it in the theaters?
No,
Or drive it?
I never did.
Okay.
I saw it on video.
I watched it on YouTube.
Yeah. The 21st.
Yeah.
That brings us to the meta
Yes,
sequel.
the meta sequel.
Grandma, do you remember anything about the murders?
Your great-grandpa and your great-grandma lived in this house when it happened. He was the boogeyman, they said. Can't catch the boogeyman. Can't kill the boogeyman. Before that summer, everybody would leave their doors unlocked. And after the summer, you saw a stranger, you'd run the other way. And now, he's back.
Meta sequel of the same name, released in 2014. It was written by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, who also directed it.
I can tell you a little bit about him.
Okay.
He is actually the creative director of Archie Comics these days.
All right.
And
Wow.
he is the, he works in television. He worked on Glee and Big Love, but he's also the producer of the Riverdale TV show, which is based on the Archie Comics characters.
Wow.
And I'm guessing he has some kind of interest in the original movie, because on Riverdale they talk about it quite
Wow.
a bit, because the Jughead character is into serial killers and stuff like that. You're like,
Interesting.
all these, and he goes down this list of all these cities that have famous serial killers, and Texarkana is one of them.
So is this guy the reason that recently they've done all these kind of alternate reality Archie comics where various characters, including Archie, are being killed?
Well, I know there's Archie versus zombies and Archie versus Predator or something, but I'm
Wow.
not that big of an Archie comics enthusiast these days to tell you for sure.
Yeah, I don't really follow it, but
But-
yeah, I've read little articles here and
I
there.
do know that's why they have that show, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, except now it's not Bewitched style. It's a lot more like
Darker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Everything has a dark reimagining these days, and
Yeah.
that's part of it.
Well, and I can't remember if it's the cinematographer or who, and I can't remember his name, I'll have to look that up, but he was also involved in comics as well. And I feel like you can kind of see that in the cinematography. I thought the cinematography of this movie was actually really good. I
I do
was
too.
really impressed by it. And I think the thing that was the most interesting about it for me was that it's almost like the original movie was a character in that movie.
Yes,
Yeah.
they refer to it, they acknowledge it.
Yeah, and it's playing in a lot of scenes. It plays obviously in the first scene, and then there's different scenes where people will be watching it or it'll be in the background. And then other things where it's almost like a shot-for-shot remake of certain scenes.
Mhm.
And so it kind of gives it this quality of feeling like you're slipping back and forth between the past and the present. I thought that was actually really good.
It is good.
I think it was much better than it really got credit for.
I was thrilled when they made the movie and that they did such a great job with it.
One interesting thing I thought about the meta sequel was that, I don't want to spoil the ending, but there are two killers, and they make a point of it about Texarkana is like a split personality city or a split city, so the killers have basically split up the details between them.
I see.
It's been a little while since I've seen it, but I remember like when I watched that thinking, oh yeah, these people, know something about Texarkana, like it was New York or a much more famous city with a legend,
Mhm.
which I thought was really clever.
Isn't Lone Wolf Gonzalez one of the killers?
Well, not in either movie, but it's been a while since I've seen the second
Okay,
one.
I thought that was the case, I don't know.
Yeah, that
It
was
could be
the only
it could
part
be
I
the
didn't
equivalent
like.
character, because I know in the second movie they it's almost like the killings and the details just mirror what happened in the original movie,
Copycat killer.
which is
Yeah.
which is kind of loosely based on real life anyway. Like,
Right.
I thought the second film did a great job of, the killer was never caught, and who's to say if it's because you had so many different law enforcement agencies trying to work on the case at once, and you had two city polices, 2 state police operations.
And county
And they weren't
sheriffs.
sheriffs, they weren't communicating with
Texas
each other.
Rangers.
The Texas Rangers, and so I feel like the second film kind of pointed out that if they're not all working together, there's a lot of things that slips through the cracks, and you're not sharing information, and that's part of what it made it so hard to solve.
Yes.
So I liked that this second film brought that out.
A lot of holes that a killer can just kind of weasel
Yeah,
through.
exactly. And it was interesting that it was again a Texas Ranger named Lone Wolf
Yes.
Morales, which is the name of the character that is based on Gonzalez, which we talked about earlier. So they literally brought back the same character name for the same role. It was little details like that that I thought were just sort of, like it was very much an homage to the original, I thought.
Lone Wolf Gonzalez is just a legend in real life too. He's a real character if anybody wants to look up some details on him. But he, even before he was involved in the Phantom Killer story, he had already had quite a career and was just a very colorful public figure. And he was called Lone Wolf because he did things his way. So
He had the big white 10-gallon hat, pearl-handled pistols on either, just like it was.
Buford T. Justice.
Yeah, he
and,
was a pretty interesting
and,
guy. Yes.
Smokey and the Bandit.
He was probably modeled after.
He may have been.
I think that's it for the Deadly Digest. Tune in next time for more psycho sadists and serial killers.